Okay, next task on our list is to create the item model that we need to define that's going to represent the document inside our MongoDB database for each of the auctions that we have. And let's go back to Solution Explorer. And inside the search service, rather than use entities as the name of the folder, I'm going to create a folder called models. And whether you use entity to describe what we're doing here or model, it really doesn't matter. They're pretty much the same thing. And I'm going to add a new file, and this time I'm going to call this one item. In fact, I need to select class, and then I am going to call this one item. And my previous policy was to update the namespace in the auction service, but new project, new day, new dawn, I'm just going to keep it as the namespace because I'm bound to keep forgetting to update this every time, and this is going to be such a small project that there's no way I'm going to be clashing the names of things that I'm creating and trying to create another thing called item in the same namespace, for example. So this item is effectively going to be the same as our auction DTO. That's what's going to come across once we have our messaging enabled, and we can send an auction when we create it from the auction service to the service. It's going to be shaped like an auction DTO. So in the interests of laziness, I'm going to go to the auction DTO in our other service. I'm going to copy all of these properties, every single one, into my clipboard, and I'm going to go to our item and I'm going to paste this in there. And good, there we go. But what we don't need here is the ID really, because we're going to derive this item class is going to derive from a MongoDB entity class called entity. And let's do exactly that. And it looks like it's not showing an error, but I do know that I need to use MongoDB entities. I think I'm going to have to give VS Code another kick because that really should be showing up as an error. So let's make sure that does show up as an error. And okay, lots of things going on here, but we'll list. There we go. That's what I wanted to see, the telltale underscore red squiggle to say that I haven't done something. So we need to bring in MongoDB entities to use entity. And one of the things this does, it provides an ID for our item. And effectively in our MongoDB database, we're going to have collections of documents. And for this item entity, then because we've derived from entity, when we do initialize our database, this is considered an entity class now inside MongoDB, and we don't actually need to give it its own ID because this is coming from entity. Although it does use, if I try and replicate what it does use and say string and capital I underscore D, notice that we get a warning saying that this is already in use with entity ID that we're deriving from. So we don't need to provide an ID because one is going to be provided already because we're deriving from that. Okay, now we've got our model. Let's head across to the program class inside the search service. So make sure we pick the correct one. And we're going to initialize our MongoDB database. So just underneath the app.map controllers, we're going to say await. And all of the database functionality provided by MongoDB entities is effectively static classes. So we don't need to create a new instance of MongoDB entities. We can just say await DB, which gives us access to the database. And then we can say that we want to init async. And then we can specify a name for the database. And I'm going to call this one search_db. And then the next parameter is the connection string. So we're going to say Mongo client settings. And we're going to say from connection string, and then we're going to use our configuration to supply the connection string. So I'm going to say builder.configuration get connection string, and then specify MongoDB connection as the name of the connection string. Once again, there's opportunity to make typos in here, so do be careful. And make sure that your typing is accurate and you haven't done something daft like putting 3 N's in for connection or whatever typos you can invent that you may well have done, because obviously if we can't find this configuration inside our app settings, then we're going to have an issue initializing our database. What we're also going to do, because this is going to act as a search server, is we're going to create an index for our item for the certain fields that we want to be able to search on. So I'm going to say await DB, and we're going to say index, and we want to index the item documents, and then we can specify the key, and we'll say x goes to x.make, and the key type is going to be text. And I'll just copy this down 2 more times. We're only going to allow 3 fields to be searched on: the make, the model, and the color. And this really is just to demonstrate how we can implement a search functionality. I'm not claiming this is going to be equivalent to proper search functionality like Elasticsearch or Google, etc. But it will demonstrate the concept. And then I'm going to say create async to actually go ahead and create this index. So with this in place, let's go ahead and just restart our project and make sure that it runs successfully. I'm just going to stop it because the hot reload would not work for what we've done there. And I'm just going to execute .NET Build once again, make sure there's no mistakes. And I've already thought of a mistake I've made. I've not actually added the configuration for this, so that would cause us a problem if we forget. And let's go to the app settings, development.json inside the search service, and we're going to supply the connection strings, and we called this MongoDB connection. If you don't trust your ability to type without making typos, please do use what you've already got and just copy the name of the connection you have inside there, and then we can specify the MongoDB connection, which effectively is a URL type of connection string. So we say MongoDB : / the name of our user, which is root, followed by the password, which is MongoPW at localhost. And it's as simple as that for our MongoDB connection string. And let's go back and let's just build again, make sure there's still no mistakes, and let's just execute .NET watch and press return and make sure our application still starts successfully, which it does. And I don't think we're going to see anything in MongoDB until we actually have, oh no, we do see the search DB and we do see the item, but we've got no documents inside there as yet because we don't have any data yet. For some reason I thought this wasn't going to show up, but it does, and we've got that in place. So what we'll take a look at next is populating this database with some data.